there's something many people celebrate. They toast with it, laugh with it, but in silence, they also lose themselves in it. We're not just talking about a drink. We're talking about a spiritual gateway, a substance as ancient as history, but as dangerous as the soul's amnesia. They call it alcohol. But if you look deeper, you'll discover why many ancient cultures referred to it as the veil of the spirit. It's no coincidence that in English it's called spirits, because it's not just something you drink. It drinks you. Today we're not here to judge you. We're here to show you something that's been in front of you all along. But no one ever told you. A truth you won't find on a label or in a commercial, because truth doesn't sell drinks. But it might wake your soul. Welcome to the Code, the channel that doesn't aim to entertain your mind, but to awaken your divine power. And if you've ever felt that alcohol didn't just make you behave differently, but made you feel less like yourself, it's because something inside you already knows the truth, and it's been waiting for you to remember. Everything that exists has a root, and when you search for the deeper meaning behind words, you often discover they hide their true purpose. The word alcohol wasn't born at a party, not in a bar, not in a culture of celebration. It was born in alchemy, in the mystical laboratories of the Middle Ages, where sages weren't just trying to turn lead into gold, but to transform consciousness itself. In Arabic, al-kul meant the spirit that devours. It referred to a black powder used by alchemists to separate the purest essence from matter. Sound familiar? To separate, to dissolve, to break unity. And now ask yourself, what does alcohol do when you consume it? It disconnects your body from your mind, and your mind from your soul. It's no coincidence they call it a spirit. The ancients knew it wasn't just a drink. It was a bridge to the dissolution of identity, a liquid capable of breaking the natural vibration of the human being. And here comes the unsettling part. In spiritual alchemy, any substance that alters the balance between body, mind, and spirit was seen as a direct threat to the process of enlightenment. Alcohol was not an ally. It was a disperser of energy, a sophisticated trap designed to keep you numb without you noticing. And why has no one ever told you this? Because no one profits from your awakening. Because a human being in full control of their mind, connected to their purpose, cannot be manipulated. That's why it's more profitable to sell you a drink than to help you look within. But today, we are here to take that gaze back, to unearth what was hidden, and to return that word to its true meaning. Napoleon Hill said it without hesitation, not in his most famous books, but in the one he dared to write after speaking to the devil. Yes, literally. A spiritual, symbolic, and brutally honest dialogue. And in that encounter, Hill asks, "How do you control human beings?" And the devil answers, "Through fear and through drifting." Drifting, according to Hill, is that state where you no longer make conscious decisions. It's when you stop thinking for yourself, when you let yourself be carried by the current, by pleasure, by environment, by comfort. And one of his favorite tools to induce it is alcohol. Because when you drink, something inside shuts down. And when it shuts down, you no longer question anything. The devil doesn't need to harm you. He only needs you to stop paying attention to yourself, to hand over your will, to silence your soul. And he achieves that every time you say, "Just one drink." Hill made it clear. The person who doesn't think is already condemned. And when you're under the effects of alcohol, you don't think. You react. You repeat. You forget. And here's his most cunning trick. The devil doesn't force you to do anything. He just hands you the perfect excuse. "I'm tired. I deserve this, it's just for today. We're celebrating. But deep down, you know, every time you drink without consciousness, something inside you dims. In the book, Hill discovers that thoughts not directed by a clear intention become available for forces that do have an intention over you. That's where the devil operates. Not with fire, not with screams, but with something softer, forgetting disguised as pleasure. He doesn't need to possess you. He just needs you to stop possessing yourself. That's why he loves alcohol, because it numbs you. And a sleeping soul is a soul without direction. And a soul without direction is fertile ground for control. So next time you're facing that drink, remember this. You're not just deciding whether to drink or not. You're deciding who is in command. And as Hill said, the price of your soul isn't paid in gold. It's paid with lack of attention. When you look back at the great spiritual traditions, you discover something very few people talk about. Yet they all have in common. Alcohol wasn't always a taboo because of morality. It was a vibrational warning, an energetic protection. In Buddhism, the fifth precept is clear. Do not ingest substances that cloud the mind, not as a punishment, but because a clouded mind strays from awakening. In Islam, the Quran describes alcohol as a work of Satan that sows enmity, forgetfulness, and distraction from the remembrance of God. It's not just a liquid, it's a direct interference with the divine connection. In Christianity, although wine appears in biblical stories, it was the abuse of this substance that became associated with loss of the soul. Paul warned in his letters, "Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." In many shamanic traditions, while sacred plants are used to access higher dimensions, alcohol rarely plays a role. Why? Because it doesn't open paths of light. It opens chaotic portals, where low vibrational energy takes control without permission. Even in Hinduism, soma, the sacred drink mentioned in the Vedas, has nothing to do with modern alcohol. Soma, elevated vibration. Alcohol lowers it. So this wasn't just cultural coincidence. It was a repeating pattern of warning, a unified voice saying, if you want to connect with the divine, you must be present. And alcohol erases you. Today, you don't need to convert to a religion. You only need to remember that your soul is already sacred, and your body is not a container for escape. It's a temple for awakening. Everything in the universe vibrates, and so do you. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions are energy in motion. And depending on their frequency, they connect you with higher realities or drag you into denser dimensions. When you feel love, gratitude, forgiveness, your vibration rises. You become lighter, centered, present. Your energy field, your aura, expands. It protects. It guides. It sustains. But when you're under the effect of alcohol, that frequency drops drastically. The light dims, your aura weakens, and the natural shield that protects your energy breaks. That's why so many people feel anxiety, sadness, or emptiness after drinking. It's not just physical hangover, it's a spiritual hangover. Your chakras, those energy centers that regulate different aspects of your being, are also deeply affected. The third eye, ajna, your intuition, your spiritual vision, becomes blurred. You lose clarity. You disconnect from your inner guidance. The solar plexus, manipura, your willpower, your discipline, your drive, weakens. And instead of deciding, you react. You sabotage yourself. The throat chakra, vishuddha, your truth, your conscious communication, gets distorted. That's why people under the influence say things they later regret. Words without a filter, without soul. Words that wound and create karmic consequences that didn't exist before. And do you know what's most dangerous? That every time you repeat the habit, the fragmentation goes deeper. Not just physically, but energetically. It's like every drink leaves an invisible crack through which your vital energy escapes. And the saddest part? You've learned to normalize it, to say, it's part of life, it's social, it's normal. But let me ask you this. Since when is numbing your soul normal? Since when is being disconnected from your intuition, lacking clarity, lacking will, a reason to celebrate? You know it. You feel it. Somewhere inside you, there's a voice screaming, "This isn't freedom. It's disconnection." You're not here by accident. You're here because that voice doesn't want to be ignored any longer. You're here because your soul wants to reclaim what once shined brightly. Because you can still restore your field, your strength, your energy, and return to vibrating in alignment with your purpose. There's something people don't talk about out loud, because it's uncomfortable, because it's frightening, because it confronts what the mind can't control. But if you ignore it, it doesn't stop existing. Many ancient cultures spoke of low vibrational entities, energies without a physical body that feed on emotional chaos, anger, guilt, fear, confusion. And to act, they need an open door, an energetic crack, a moment when you're not fully there. Alcohol, when it lowers your frequency, breaks that natural protection. And then, something can enter. Have you ever seen someone under the influence of alcohol act like a completely different person, as if something else had taken over? They say things they'd never say. They do things they can't explain. And when they wake up, they don't remember. Or they feel a heavy emptiness, a dark sensation, as if something took a part of them. It's not just psychological, it's energetic. Many shamanic traditions affirm that certain entities can attach to the weakened aura of an intoxicated person and remain there, feeding off their energy, their dense emotions, their disconnection. That explains why some people, after years of abuse, don't just lose their health, they lose their essence. Their gaze dims, their purpose fades, their soul seems lost. The problem was never just the drink, it was the door you left open when you took it. And if you've ever felt like something got into you after drinking, it wasn't just your imagination, it was a warning. You're not here to be afraid. You're here to recognize and to take back what belongs to you. Your energy, your awareness, your soul. There's something you cannot avoid. Every action leaves a mark. Every word, a frequency. Every decision, a consequence. That's karma. Not as punishment, but as a spiritual equation always seeking balance. And here's where it gets delicate. When you're under the influence of alcohol, you don't stop creating karma. You just stop realizing you're creating it. The words you say without thinking still land in someone else's heart. The promises you make without intention still get broken. The impulsive choices still carry consequences. And when the soul isn't present, you're more likely to act from ego, impulse, or fear. That generates karmic bonds with people, with emotions, with situations that repeat over and over, as if life was asking you to repair what you created unconsciously. And the hardest part? Sometimes, you don't even remember what you did. But the universe does. Karma isn't erased by forgetfulness. It's dissolved through awareness. That's why alcohol is so dangerous, because you act without presence, but still sign energetic contracts. And those contracts, they bind you. The good news is, nothing is set in stone. And if you were capable of creating karma unconsciously, You are just as capable of liberating yourself, with intention. Today, you can choose to act from your soul, not from the fog of forgetting. There is a part of you that is always awake, even when you sleep, even when you're distracted, even when you feel lost. That part is called your higher self. It's your silent guide, your inner compass, the voice that doesn't shout, but persists, the one that whispers truth when everything outside is noise. But alcohol doesn't just lower your energy. It turns down the volume of your soul. What once was clear intuition becomes confusion. What once was certainty becomes doubt. And then, you no longer know what decision to make. You don't know who to listen to. You don't know what you truly feel, because you're disconnected from yourself. Have you ever tried to meditate after drinking? To pray with a heavy heart? To hear your inner voice through a clouded soul? You can't, because light doesn't enter where consciousness is asleep. In yogic tradition, it is said that the third eye, the seat of intuition, goes dark under the effects of alcohol. The willpower chakra weakens, and the truth chakra gets distorted. Your body may keep walking, but without direction, without clarity, without power. Your higher self doesn't leave. It just goes silent, waiting for you to remember that you don't need a drink to ease your tension, nor an excuse to shut down your feelings. All you really need is to come back to yourself, to your voice, to your center. And the moment is now. Yes, it can be reversed. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too late, because your soul isn't stained by what you've done, but awakened by what you choose now. The path back doesn't require you to be perfect, only to be present. Every time you choose water instead of the drink, you're saying to your soul, I remember you. Every time you breathe instead of reacting, I honor you. Every time you stop, reflect, and say no, I protect you. That's how you begin to return. You don't need a giant ritual, just one conscious choice at a time. Your energy field can be restored. Your chakras can regain their balance. Your connection to the divine can be strengthened again. Because nothing has truly left you. You just stepped away. And now, you can step closer. Forgiveness is the key, not from others, not from the world, but from yourself. Forgive yourself for forgetting who you were, for numbing your light, for silencing your inner voice. Because the moment you forgive yourself, you take your power back. And that's the beginning of everything. You came to this world to awaken, not to escape, not to run, but to remember. You were always the miracle. You weren't born to numb yourself. You weren't born to blur your vision, silence your intuition, or forget your mission. You were born to awaken, to vibrate, to remember, to rise. Alcohol is not your enemy. Disconnection is. And now that you know what really happens, you can't pretend you don't. You can't keep calling fun what has slowly separated you from your light. You've seen the cost, the spiritual consequences, the invisible chains. But you've also seen the path, the healing, the possibility, the return. You don't need to be a saint. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start with one word. Enough. Enough of forgetting who you are. Enough of hiding your pain. Enough of betraying your light for a few minutes of false relief. From this moment on, you choose differently. You choose to protect your energy, to honor your soul, to walk awake. If this message reached you, it's not a coincidence. Your higher self wanted you to remember this. You don't need another drink. You need a deeper connection, You don't need to escape life. You need to take command of it. And you can start now, because your soul has been ready for a long time.